place down there called the 12 Caesars, which was on Miami Beach.
Oh.
And one of the owners of that was good friends with Jackie Gleason, who lived in Miami. And through some maneuverings, my parents and I got to go over to Jackie's estate, which he built down there. He built a big house on a golf course.
Wow.
Down in Florida, in Miami, and had moved his television show down there in the early 60s. So it was through mutual friends in Miami that we got to go over to Jackie's house, and Jackie was perpetually looking for people to play golf and pool with him. It was like a big thing. He was always looking for new people, to the point where he built a house on a golf course so he could have different golfing partners, and he liked to bet and play for money. And one strange thing that he did when I was down there is he asked me how much money I had on me, and I was a little kid. I'm talking like this is the early 70s. I'm 8 or 9, and I had like $4 on me. And he played me for it, and of course he beat me.
Yeah.
And I gave him the $4. And when I went to leave, he took a very expensive Rolex watch off his wrist and gave it to me. I think I got the better deal.
The audiobook, I listened to it. It wasn't just a review of his involvement with the paranormal. It was really a well-rounded biography of him in general. That's what I thought. And like the second half of it was focusing on the paranormal stuff, but I learned all about his life from the first half. It was really kind of well-rounded and complete, so I was impressed by that. Was that your intention?
Well, yeah, you have to understand, Tracy, I'm 45 years old. And younger people, Generation Y, people younger than myself, they pretty much associate Jackie Gleason with the Smokey and the Bandit movie with Burt Reynolds. He played the sheriff in it.
Okay.
Because they still rerun that on things like TNT and stations like that. But they're not as aware of his earlier career as a major comedian. He was the highest paid entertainer of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And as I say, that's more why I gave a full biography and a full career outline, is a lot of younger people don't know the full impact he had on entertainment. His records sold better than Elvis Presley's in the 1950s. He made musical albums. He had a television show from 1947 till 1970. He was always in like the top 5 or so, except towards the end when things started to change. But he was such a huge figure, and younger people only identify him with his character as the sheriff and Smokey and the Bandit. So that was more to give people a thumbnail sketch of who Jackie Gleason was.
Now, I sort of got the impression from what you were saying that he was very influential in the sort of formation of lounge music. I used to have one of his albums, and I remember that actually, I think Salvador Dali was on it, right?
Yes, Salvador Dali and Jackie Gleason were very good friends, and he was on, I believe, 2 albums of Jackie Gleason's. Now, Jackie couldn't read a note of music, and he had a composer who he hired who he would hum tunes to.
Yeah.
And this fellow was kind of like the George Martin of Jackie Gleason. He was a realizer of Jackie's many tunes. And Jackie would also come in and say, well, put a horn section on this. So he had a very hands-on approach to working with music. And much of his lounge music now, he used to call it vanilla music. That was his name for it. You can still hear it in shopping malls throughout the world. It's still used.
But I remember you were saying on the recording, on the audiobook, that some people think that basically he shouldn't get, credit for making these songs, that since he was just humming them and telling someone else what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, he hired a very successful band leader to, as I say, realize this, and he never gave him due credit. And the bad thing about my book, which I also spotted the dark side of this nice man who gave me his watch for $4 because he beat me at a game of pool. Jackie Gleason was a horrible man to work for, and he, throughout his entire career, stole other people's material and never gave them due credit. He always treated Art Carney, who was his partner on a show he did called The Honeymooners, as an employee. Even as he became more popular, Art Carney's character, Jackie Gleason, even tried to minimize him in the show. So you get a lot of anger and animosity towards other actors, including these people who really put these record albums together. Like I say, he couldn't write a note or orchestrate. So that's kind of, I also look at kind of the dark side of Jackie Gleason.
I was going to say, I've known some people in the past who did similar things where they would, person considered him himself or herself to be a musician, and all they really did was they had a friend who knew how to use a computer, and they would go in and like tell that person a general idea of a song, and that person would create that song, and then when the album comes out, the person with the idea is the one getting the credit, but the person who actually created the whole thing, has some minor credit.
I know who you're talking about, but I won't say it. But someone less talented than Jackie Gleason.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's what kind of is weird about what you're describing. And then I know I've read biographies and seen examples of other people like that, where there's a person who is really quite talented, and they could have succeeded just using their own material fine, and made their mark on history and everything. But the sort of obsessive and narcissistic personality drives them to not only take credit for what they've done, but for what other people have done as well. And it really kind of muddies the waters so that it's hard to tell when you're looking back on their life story.
Oh, that's very true in the case of Jackie Gleason, because he was known around New York in the 30s and 40s for stealing other people's jokes and material and never paying them back. I mean, I shouldn't say this isn't all negative about Jackie Gleason in the book, but he he did have a very dark and selfish side to him. He started out life as a pool hustler when he was 14 years old. So he came from a very jaded background. His father abandoned the family when he was little, and his mother worked in a subway, and she died young. So he was very much from the school of hard knocks. And how he became interested in the paranormal is he read Butler's Lives of the Saints. He was from a Roman Catholic background, and he remained Catholic all his life, and even was buried in a Catholic cemetery in Miami and had a full mass when he died. So he remained Catholic, but he became obsessed with all sorts of UFO and paranormal materials, even becoming a regular guest on the Long John Nebel show, which was the first coast-to-coast AM in the 1950s, and he offered $10,000 to anyone who could demonstrate a contact with a UFO or credible paranormal powers, and he eventually upped that to $1 million about 20 years later, but he never paid out. And the strange thing is, he even went to Edward R. Murrow, and I got a very rare clip of Jackie talking on Long John Nebel. He wanted to do a documentary on UFOs in 1956 and show it on national television.
Wow.
But the networks and the military shot the idea right down. Edward R. Murrow called someone he knew in the Pentagon, and they said, "You'll get no cooperation from us." And so there again, Jackie, here's the genius of Jackie now. The genius of Jackie is that he foresaw what was coming next. All these big UFO documentaries you see starting in the 1970s, he was ahead of that, 15, 20 years before his time. So it's quite amazing that the talent he had, though, as I say, he stole people's jokes and stole people's music. The talents he did have were very credible, and as you said, he could have done well just doing that. But it's amazing that he foresaw all things like In Search Of and now all this stuff you see on the History Channel.
Mm-hmm.
That was, Jackie Gleason wanted to do that in 1956, which was really visionary of him.
Now, you said in your book that there's 4 episodes of The Honeymooners that are dedicated to paranormal subjects. What were those?
Now, that's another really amazing thing, because Jackie's interest in the paranormal came shooting out into his creative endeavors, including The Honeymooners. And there's one of the early Honeymooner episodes, which is lost, is called The Fortune Teller, where the characters of Ralph and Ed get obsessed with a crystal gazer. Another episode and deals with astrology and how Jackie and Ed Norton there he decides to ask his boss for a raise based on astronomical information, which characterized the whole show. He also had another one, and this is the real bizarre, kooky one. There's an episode called The Hypnotist, where a hypnotist at Ralph's lodge performs an act of mind control on Ralph and Ed and has them switch personalities. So they have like multiple personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And the Raccoon Lodge is like a metaphor for the Freemasons. That's what it's supposed to represent. It's the sacred order of the raccoons. And it's very strange because Jackie Gleason recruited this hypnotist to perform an act of mind control on his wife, Alice, to have her turn over the household money so he can go to a wild Shriner-like raccoon convention in Chicago. And I know this is the episode. It's right on YouTube, and he wants the hypnotist to make her not remember. So that's a thing called an amnesic barrier in hypnosis.
Right.
So Jackie Gleason knew about all these, but you hear about the Masons brainwashing people and having, sex slaves and mind-controlled people. Well, Jackie Gleason touched upon that right on his television show in the mid-50s, one of the 39 classic episodes. He kind of presaged all these conspiracy theories you see on, like, Alex Jones and Jeff Rentz and programs like this. He had some kind of grip on it back then, and that's the most mysterious episode or work he ever did, because it does foreshadow so much of the secret society conspiracy theory. That's a very bizarre and amazing episode. It's free on YouTube. If people want to look it up, just put Honeymooners, The Hypnotist. You can watch the whole thing. That's one I watched 4 or 5 times, and I still pick up little bits and pieces and things in it, which is really quite amazing when you think about it.
What you mentioned about sort of the confluence between hypnotism and Freemasonry. Now, you don't have to believe in conspiracy theories, but I know that I've just noticed it a lot, because I have a lot of friends who are Freemasons, and that several of them, and this is really, I can't say this about other groups of people that I know, several of them practice hypnotism, have studied it. I know one in particular, that's his job. And then, if you look back at the actual history of mesmerism and things like that, you find that a lot of it comes out of Masonic lodges, and I've noticed a lot of them have an interest in paranormal stuff in general, and have taken it as far as to study things like hypnotism and NLP, and also astrology is very common amongst my Freemason friends. So, and I just wanted to mention this to some of our younger audience, who you said a lot of people don't know who Jackie Gleason is anymore, and a lot of people haven't seen The Honeymooners anymore. A lot of that stuff's just not being shown on TV anymore. However, everyone's seen the Flintstones. And so if you ever want to know what The Honeymooners is like, just pretty much watch the Flintstones. And
Similar. They had a lodge too.
Isn't it basically they've taken the same characters and translated them to a Stone Age setting?
That's pretty much. Now, the character of Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton inspired That, and it also inspired Top Cat, the another kids cartoon I used to watch in the early 70s. So that character of a bossy, belligerent guy and a stupid idiot kind of archetype, Jackie Gleason and Art Carney kind of refined that, and a lot of people copied them. Now, Jackie Gleason said they got that from Laurel and Hardy. That's
right.
really what we're looking at. So, yeah, it's very odd.